Everyone, welcome to the SEC Breakdown, our weekly college football show. We'll take a look back at the action from last week in the SEC and look ahead to this week's slate of games. The SEC playing matchmaker this week. Missouri and Arkansas was postponed due to COVID issues in Arkansas's program. So the SEC then pivoted and had Missouri host Vanderbilt instead of Vanderbilt playing Tennessee. And so now Tennessee is off. And I think we could see this on a week-to-week basis here in the coming weeks of the SEC reconfiguring the schedule. Guys, any thoughts on that, or any thoughts looking back on last week's action?
Well, first, congratulations on the weekend off.
Thank you.
Big for you. I think we will see this. I think every Monday now I've been looking at Twitter, like, all right, when's that SEC news dump going to come? How many games are going to move? Because I'm trying to figure out like what I'm doing covering Auburn. So it's got to be crazy for a football coach, because I don't matter as far as if you tell me where to go, I'll just go to that game. But for a football coach to be like, I don't know where I'm playing on Monday, that's something they've never dealt with. So if you're looking at those coaches, that's got to be pretty crazy just to be like, you get off the practice field. It's like, hey, you're playing a different team Saturday. Figure it out in the next, 5 days.
And from the Alabama perspective, they don't know if they're going to have a game in between December 5th and the SEC championship game, because unless something maniacal happens, Bama's going to be in the SEC title game. Will they play on the 12th before they play on the 19th? Play Florida probably in that SEC title game, or are they going to have an off week? Are they going to play LSU at all this year? Is there going to be a window of opportunity to schedule that game? Someone who likes to schedule his days down to the 10 second, if not the actual second, like Nick Saban, I can see where that would drive him to the brink of insanity, which he's probably there most of the time anyway.
Just think if Coach Saban would have traveled somewhere for a game and then not got to play like Sweeney this week. A couple of weeks ago, one of the Pac-12 games, they switched the team's opponent on a Friday and had them play on Sunday. So
Allen, UCLA, yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's probably going to happen, I believe, a week ago yesterday. Next Monday, they're going to announce LSU Alabama on December 5th and move Alabama's game against Arkansas to the 12th, right, to December 12th. And then that way Florida and Alabama will both have a game on the 12th going into the championship game. Because that would be kind of unfair if Florida had a game and Alabama didn't the week before.
What I find fascinating about this week's rescheduling was, best I can tell, is it was pretty much mostly done for Missouri. There's still kind of a thought, I think, around the SEC of little old Missouri. Do they belong in the SEC? Greg Sankey says absolutely Missouri belongs. Not only that, we're going to reconfigure this weekend's games for Missouri. And because Missouri already had 2 makeup games scheduled, they had to play Vanderbilt in a makeup. They have to play Georgia in a makeup. And so after Arkansas was postponed, they wouldn't have been able to get all their games in. So best I can tell, they reconfigured the schedule for this weekend and gave Tennessee an open date so Vanderbilt instead could play Missouri. How the mighty have fallen. Tennessee getting a game postponed to allow Vanderbilt to instead play Missouri.
But isn't that more because Missouri's had more postponements than Tennessee? I don't think it's because there's any favoritism to Missouri.
Well, yeah, they've had more postponements, but what's the big deal if Missouri can't get 10 games in this season and only gets 9 games in?
Oh, I see.
They moved a rivalry game for. Like, could you imagine if they said, hey, it's Monday, we're gonna push the Iron Bowl a week to make sure Missouri and Vanderbilt get to play? There'd be a riot.
Don't speak that into existence. Don't do that.
Yeah. Look, it's already Tuesday. I don't think they can do that anymore.
Yeah, they weren't going to touch the Auburn-Alabama game for sure, because that could be
CBS wouldn't let them.
Right, and that's why they're going to reschedule Alabama-LSU, because it's CBS.
And CBS wants it, yeah. Why? Like, why does anyone want that game?
Well, it'll be tied for the first 2 or 3 minutes.
In theory.
Yeah, in theory.
Maybe.
It definitely doesn't look like a good game, but it's been a kind of a good game in the past. But maybe that's how. But I don't think CBS has a lot of choices right now either.
I actually think it works out well for Tennessee anyway, so they should be thanking Missouri for picking up Vanderbilt this week, because the longer Jeremy Pruitt can avoid a potential loss to Vanderbilt, the better. So if I'm Jeremy Pruitt, I say just keep kicking that game back into the calendar, and maybe don't play it until 2021. Maybe postpone a few more of these games and make sure it doesn't get any worse for the Vols. All right, let's look ahead to the slate this week, guys, and start us off with the big Vanderbilt Missouri game that the SEC so wanted to get in. I'll take Missouri and say Vanderbilt remains winless at least until that possible game against Tennessee.
I might pick Vanderbilt against Tennessee just for kicks, but I'll pick Missouri to beat Vanderbilt. I just don't see Vanderbilt really being competitive in any game that's not a rivalry.
I'm not sure that I've seen a single second of Vanderbilt football this year, and I kind of like it that way. I think I'm gonna keep it that way, and go ahead and pick Missouri while I'm at it.
I'll take Missouri as well. This is the Intellectual Bowl, right? The two best colleges in the. Can we agree? Vanderbilt, Missouri.
Not that spoken like a Missouri alum. How about Georgia and South Carolina? Georgia found some answers at quarterback last week. That their game against Mississippi State was still quite a bit closer than most would have expected, but I thought overall as a positive, Georgia found a quarterback, and I'll take the Bulldogs. Anybody thinking upset here with the Gamecocks?
No.
Can't see it. Not with all they've been through this year. I think Georgia figures it out.
All right, moving along then. Kentucky at Florida. Biggest question for me in this one is, what can Kyle Trask do to perhaps further his Heisman candidacy? Of course, Kentucky at times this year has had a good defense, not necessarily last weekend. Can Kyle Trask continue the Heisman march? Do you guys think he's in the front runner position right now, or not necessarily?
Well, I'm a Heisman voter. I have Kyle at number 2 behind Mac Jones. He's been in the top 3. I think he's legitimate, has a chance. Especially if he beats Alabama in the SEC title game. But I think he'll probably put up good numbers against Kentucky in an easy Florida win.
Yeah, I think Trask might be maybe my leader just because of the numbers. But I feel like when you get to the Heisman time. Florida has 1 loss. If they lose to Alabama in the championship game, that's 2 losses. Are you going to give the Heisman to a 2-loss quarterback over a guy in Mac Jones who will probably still be undefeated and an SEC champion at that point? I think numbers-wise, you can argue it. And I think he'll put up huge numbers against Kentucky. And I think Florida will walk all over Kentucky just like Alabama did, even if Kentucky might score a little more points because Florida can't defend anybody. But yeah, the Heisman debate, that's going to be interesting to see. He's going to have to put up video game numbers these last few games, I think, to have a shot.
I used to have a high opinion of Kentucky's defense, and then they came to Tuscaloosa, and now that opinion has changed. So I imagine that Florida will, maybe not to the degree that Alabama lit Kentucky up, but I think Florida will do something pretty similar.
Glenn, the game you'll be monitoring closest this week, LSU has Texas AM on the road. LSU, are they improving enough to give A&M a fight or no?
No, I don't think so. If you look at LSU's wins, South Carolina and Arkansas, they beat a depleted roster and really had to sweat out that win. I mean, they got a pretty fortunate field goal block to stop overtime. They got a nice penalty, that targeting penalty on their winning drive. It was a big win for LSU, but I don't think they can stay with Texas A&M's offense. Jimbo's finally putting together a good offense this season with the Aggies. Kellen Mond is much better than he was last year. So I think A&M wins by the spread or more, which is 13 points.
I'd agree with that. Having watched LSU a few times this year, I can't see them keeping up with that Texas A&M team.
Is it just me, or has Texas A&M been quietly good this year? Like most people paid attention to them when they played Alabama, and that didn't go very well. And then a lot of people paid attention when they beat Florida. But after that, ho-hum win over Mississippi State, ho-hum win over Arkansas, high scoring, but more or less what you would expect in terms of scoring margin. They beat up on South Carolina, which a lot of people have. So it feels like no one's been paying attention to A&M for the last 6 weeks, because I know I was just jarred when I saw number 5 next to their name in a poll on Sunday because I completely forgot about them for like 6 weeks.
Well, you're in
I
Alabama.
think
You'll just think about Alabama and Alabama. I mean, come on.
Hey, we have 2 schools in this state, Glenn.
All the more reason to just think about what's going on in Alabama. But you're right. You make a good point. A&M has just kind of mailed it in like on the paper the last several weeks, I would say.
Mississippi State Ole Miss is, I think, kind of a spicy game on the schedule this week. The 2 first-year coaches, Lane Kiffin's done a little better than Mike Leach has done up to this point. I'm going to take Kiffin to win the Egg Bowl here. What do you guys think?
I will also take Ole Miss, but I really want, just for this game, I want to see Mississippi State be able to do what it did week 1 against LSU and like actually get that air raid rolling, because I want to see this game like in the 50s. Like if either team scores less than 30, I'm going to be kind of mad about it. I want this game to be just a full-fledged like Big 12 shootout.
Well, if anyone can do that, it's Ole Miss's defense, right? They're kind of the antidote to bad offense. So they fixed a lot of woes, and which is weird considering Mississippi State just found something resembling offense against Georgia. Nobody saw that coming before that game last week, and they did it with like half their roster available because State's been hit by COVID. So that was. If Mississippi State is actually starting to figure out its offense right now, it's coming with impeccable timing, because you might get a pretty good bit of points in that game, which feels like we've earned. We deserve a wild Egg Bowl.
Yeah, I was impressed with Mississippi State's game against Georgia. I mean, I definitely didn't think they would score that many points against the best defense in the SEC, right? Maybe got his offense going. Mississippi State and Ole Miss, that could be in the 50s, maybe. Both teams.
Please.
Hopefully.
And with thanks to the SEC giving me an open date, I'll have Mississippi State and Ole Miss on one TV. Of course, on the other TV on Saturday afternoon, we'll have the Iron Bowl and Auburn at Alabama. Auburn, I got an impression of them last week when they played Tennessee. Wasn't blown away, but I thought there's some pieces there, particularly on offense. Don't know that they have enough to keep up with Alabama, but then again, sometimes you expect the unexpected in the Iron Bowl. I'll take Alabama, but what do you guys see in this one?
Auburn is good. It's a good football team. They can score some points. They have a pretty good defense. But to beat Alabama, this Alabama team in Tuscaloosa, it's going to have to be better than it is and probably perfect. It's going to have to keep up with an offense that hasn't been slowed down at all. I don't know if it can slow down Alabama's offense. Auburn hasn't scored more than 35 points. It scored only more than 35 only once this year against LSU, which I think everyone can score more than 35 against. I just don't know if Auburn can keep up unless it has some sort of 2019 craziness of 2 pick sixes, a missed field goal, 12 men on the field for a punt. It needs some of that kind of energy. And that's going to be harder to find at Bryant-Denny than it was at Jordan-Hare. So I will pick Alabama to win the Iron Bowl.
I would as well. And I think it's just how this Alabama team is built. They're built to thrive in shootouts. And I don't know that Auburn has the defense to stand up to that this year. Because, take it to last year's Iron Bowl. That offense that Bama took there and scored 42, I think.
43.
Pretty much the same offense. And Auburn's defense, and I guess I could ask you this, Josh, would you say the defense is significantly worse or a little worse than it was last year? How would you characterize that?
It's a little worse, and it thrives more on creating turnovers, which Alabama is very good at avoiding.
More or less the same offensive unit from last year that put 45 on them on the road. Now it's in Bryant-Denny, same offense. You're more or less counting on that. You can feel pretty good that Bama's going to give you, minimum 42. In this game. Can Auburn match that? I'm a little skeptical of that.
I am too.
What's the point spread on this game?
23, 24?
I think Alabama's going to win, but I don't think they're going to cover that point spread. I think Auburn's going to stay within 2 touchdowns, 10 points, possibly. I think it could be a good game, but let's see Alabama pulling it out.
Enjoy the action this week. I know I will, thanks to this extended holiday the SEC has granted me, and I'll come to regret it when I'm still covering football. December 19th, that isn't the SEC Championship. Thanks for watching this week's SEC Breakdown.